Hey guys, Baron McGrady here, and in today's video I want to share with you the 3 processes and systems that I wish I'd implemented earlier when starting my business. I read an email this morning I got from a good friend of mine, Dave Jennings, who owns a software company called Systems Hub. And essentially it's a software system that is used to store all of your safe operating procedures, your SOPs, your process documents, training and procedures and so forth. And he'd interviewed 50 business coaches and asked them if they were to start again, what's the number one process or system they'd put in place? And the responses varied, anything from a process to build an email list, to a sales process, to how to strategically plan and execute a business plan, to an organizational chart and so forth. And although some of these answers I found relative, what I felt was missed in it was actually understanding where a client was at or where they're at to start out. For me, I certainly wouldn't go and build an email list if I had to start my business all over again. Now, obviously, each and every business is different, but I wanted to share with you on this video the very first process or system that I'd be putting in place, why I'd want to put it in place, and what the next two are after that. Because depending on where you're at in business right now, business needs different things. Yet the one process that I want to share with you, regardless of whether you're a startup or whether you're doing $20 million a year, it's one of the first things that we help a lot of our clients implement when they join us. And that is a process around how to manage cash. Now, I'm not sure about you, but I certainly didn't grow up with an accountancy degree. It took me a long time in business to be able to learn how to understand and read a profit and loss report and a balance sheet and so forth. And I've seen that every time I went to my accountant for advice earlier on in my business, I was just confused even more than really what I should have been at the time. And I came across a methodology or created a methodology many, many years ago to help me to better manage my money after reading a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. And essentially what this book talks about is the way that the monetary system first came to play. And it came to play through essentially a values exchange. People wanted to exchange different goods or services, bags of rice and wheat and things like that. And they created the monetary system to be able to create value in that exchange. And furthermore, it started to talk about the principles of tithing, which for any of you who've ever been to church or any sort of religious, you're probably well up to date with what tithing is. Now, this book was significantly impactful for me, and it changed my life because I grew up in a family where I don't know if my mum and dad necessarily had the best beliefs or the best structures around managing finances or money, nor were the best beliefs and structures handed out to them from their parents and their ancestors. Now, not to say that we're poor by any stretch of the means. We certainly always had what we needed. Yet I noticed my dad was always working to provide things for myself and my 3 other brothers. Now, we never went without anything. But what I started to realize very early on in my career in business is that I was very emotional when it came to money. And so what would happen is that when there was plenty of money coming in, I would spend it or I'd invest it into things that I thought I needed for the business. And when there was no money coming in, I was often quite needy in sales conversations with clients and all about trying to get the money, wasn't serving them. And I noticed this switch for many years in my life where when I had money, I could really focus on serving the client, which was ultimately what was it for me at the core. Yeah, when I didn't have any money, I was very much about trying to serve myself. And so the methodology I created back then was around basically setting up bank accounts like buckets. And through setting up bank accounts like buckets, it allowed every single dollar that I got into the business from revenue to be split between tax and GST and super obligations around taking a wage for myself as an owner, putting a little bit of money aside as profit, and also putting money aside for operational expenses. And a few years ago, I come across a book called Profit First by a guy named Mike Musquets. And this book was a significant book that further changed my life because it took what I'd already been doing for many years of my business life and personal life. I apply the same principles in business and personal, and it applied it in an even greater depth where he'd actually interviewed thousands of companies around the world and worked out the percentage allocations that should go into these buckets based on the size revenue business is doing. So the first process that I'd be putting in place would be the Profit First approach, and you can download the ebook or you can buy the book. It's a very, very simple process to put in place. Most likely for many of you, it will shock you when you go to put it in place to realize how skewed your numbers are. Some of you guys might be surprised, some of you guys might not be surprised. Yet it's a process that if you spend 3 to 6 months implementing it from a disciplinary perspective, you'll notice a significant increase in your business. The one thing that I hear so many times of new clients that join us is that they're making money, yet they never have any money. It's like, oh, we made 100 grand this year, but we haven't got it. And it's a common thing because the way that the money flows and transfers through a business, whether it's held up in accounts receivable, accounts payable, whether it's held up in tax liabilities, and et cetera, et cetera. Whereas the profit first methodology is a very clean and very easy way to manage your money, even if you don't know how to use profit and loss report. So the very first system that I implement if I was starting business from scratch again would be the profit first methodology. The second thing that I would do, and for me this seems logical, like if we look at a business and we look at the journey of a client through a business, it starts with the client being attracted to the business and the pillar of what we call marketing. From marketing, we would then take that prospect, they'd go through some form of a sales process. So sales would be the second pillar. Then we'll need to deliver to them the product or service that they've bought. So that's fulfillment. And then after fulfillment, we would be looking at obviously a financial pillar. So if we look at the journey of a client through the business, I say that they go through 4 pillars: marketing, sales, fulfillment, and then finances, where we obviously collect in on the cash. So for me, it seems logical that the next process that I would put in place would be one around attracting leads. And I believe that if you're in business and you're doing less than $500,000 right now, 80% of your time should be spent on sales and marketing. And the only processes and systems you should be working on is that around generating leads and turning them into clients. And that's the only process you should be working on, because under $500,000 a year, it's likely that your deliverability of that product and service is going to change at scale. Often, 80 to 90% of the time, business owners that I meet, once they get over $500,000 mark, they have to change the way they deliver their product and service to be sustainable and scalable. And so the second process that I put in place is a process around how do we generate leads and how do we turn those leads into sales? So be what we almost call the critical client flow. So we attract clients, whether it be through some form of joint venture, whether it be through referrals, whether it be through paid advertising or mail outs or conversations or networking events, whatever it is, all those different opportunities to generate interest. And how do we funnel them down through a proven sales process or a sales process to where they become clients? Because what gets measured gets managed. And when we can start to run people or things through a process, we can start to understand where the gaps are or where the holes are in that bucket and look to improve that. And so the second process I put in place would be around that critical client flow, taking interest into sales to cash, essentially taking people from being a prospect into being a sale of a product or service. The third process, once I've got the profit first methodology and some form of a critical client flow in place, would have to be around how we implement new systems and processes into the business. One mistake I see a lot of business owners make is that they go into business and they believe they have to write, they get to a position where the business is out of control, they have to hire staff, and they believe that they understand that systems are important and processes are important, and so they believe they have to go and start making these themselves. And I think that's the biggest mistake we can make as business owners, unless it's something that you're very driven by and something you're very good at. Yet most of the time I find that the visionary role, the entrepreneur that starts the business, is not that great at documenting processes and systems, because they're more of a big picture visionary thinker rather than like an integrated detailed type person. And so the third process that I would implement is essentially a system for creating systems. I would document a way that in which we capture certain roles, responsibilities, tasks in the business, that we formulate them into a how-to, how we then store them into our document management system, so how they get named, how they get stored so that they're very easy for other people to find, and how they get put into some form of reoccurring task or responsibility. Like for us, it's Asana. And we have a process for implementing new systems and processes. And whenever there's a task for any of my team to do, they run through this process. And the first question is like, does a system already exist for this task? Yes or no? If it's no, cool. Does it need to be done again? Yes or no? And it goes all the way through to helping create it, sends it through to one of my department heads for review. It gets named, it gets stored in a document registry, and it gets uploaded into Asana and assigned back to team member as a recurring task. And it's the way that we now have well over 250 processes and systems within the Game Changers business alone, let alone the other businesses that I'm involved in, and how we're able to have a significant team in the Philippines that run somewhat seamlessly and allow me to have a business that works without me. So that would be a third system to implement. If you're curious to find out more about that, I recently recorded an interview with Dave Jennings for the Systems Summit version 2, 2019. I'll make sure that there's a link put below here, linked back into the Systems Summit if you want to download my process for implementing processes, along with 49 other incredible processes from some of the greatest entrepreneurs in the world, including the Profit First methodology. Just click on the link below and join into that one. So that's my video. That, if I was to start again, that would be the 3 processes I put in place. I wouldn't be touching anything else until I'm over the $500,000 mark. And if you are a business owner right now and you're doing a few $1,000,000 a year and you're not managing your cash very well, you're noticing that you've got some challenges or some pitfalls or some holes in your cash flow, I would definitely look at implementing Profit First. If you're finding that you haven't necessarily got a proven and refined sales and marketing process, I would highly recommend going back and putting that in place. I bet many business owners have been doing a few $1,000,000 a year on referrals, and all of a sudden the referrals have dropped and they've had to go and learn this whole marketing and advertising thing. So the best time to work on your marketing and sales is when you're getting plenty of new leads and in sales. The second best time is when you're not getting plenty of leads and sales. And the third one is that if you're a business right now that is heavily relied upon you as a business owner, I would highly recommend clicking the link below, joining the Systems Summit. You'll get a copy of that as well as the interview that I do with Dave. I think it's half an hour, 40 minutes, where I go through and explain that process step by step. Very easy to implement, but what it's going to allow is you to grow a business well beyond you, well without you, and one in such a way that's heavily process and systems driven, which is going to free you up as a business owner and allow you to do more of the things that you like to do and allow your team to be very efficient in doing what they do. So 2 ways you can go from here. One is you can click on the link and join me on the Systems Summit and download my free system. The second one is if you are a business owner and you're looking to improve your cash flow, implement systems and processes through your organization, hire and the right staff, maybe even find out new ways to generate leads and make better sales, click on the other link below and book a 15-minute application call with one of my team where we can kind of just assess where you're at, where you want to go, and whether or not you might be a good fit to work with the Game Changers to help you to implement these strategies and tactics and really up-level yourself and your business to new heights. My name is Barry Modity, CEO and founder of the Game Changers. Thanks very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next one. Bye.